Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this Ag Forecast brought to you by Agrible, the makers of Morning Farm Report. Our software gives growers the insights to make the best decisions possible about their operations. Well, let's begin with a look at the last 30 days of precipitation expressed as a percent of normal. We know how important it is for late season rain in August to help the corn and soybean crops finish. And so it's good to look at this map as we move into our longer range forecast for the middle and end of September in terms of precipitation. We do have some pockets of drier weather that have hit parts of Iowa and Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana. In fact, a big section of the middle part of our Corn Belt in here has had some drier weather. Now, of course, it's been very, very dry out west under that ridge, and we have seen some incredible fires that have broken out here. And we talked about that a lot in our last video. Plus, we've been giving you lots of updates about the incredible flooding that's been happening due to Hurricane Harvey that stretched from Texas through Louisiana back up into parts of Tennessee and Kentucky. Just an interesting side note, over the last 14 days, rather than 30, but over the last 14, I did a quick calculation of what the percent of normal rainfall was north of Houston. The value is 2,700% of normal rainfall. So this is an important kind of backdrop image as we move into our forecast for precipitation soon. Now, we've been discussing for several days, almost 2 weeks now, this cool down pattern that we were going to see here in the middle of this first week of September. I want to kind of show you how that all unfolded. So in the background here, I have a map showing storm reports. And what happened was, as you can see in this animation, that we had a pretty powerful cold front come through a couple of days ago. And as it did so, it dropped a nice line of showers and storms through part of the Corn Belt, really stretching mostly into the eastern part of the Corn Belt. And as that system came through and dropped those storms, we did get some severe wind reports, even a tornado report here in Ohio, and some hail reports back into Illinois. So as that front came through, it did do quite a bit of damage. But you can see where the rain came from this. It did miss some sections of the Corn Belt quite a bit. But what that front was kind of feeding off of was this. This is the flow pattern of the atmosphere on Wednesday, September the 6th. Huge ridge out west, deep trough over the eastern third of the country. And it was this flow pattern that raised risk of a potential for a frost that we were looking at a couple of weeks ago. We then, over the time, kind of noticed that frost threat was getting smaller and smaller. And now that the event has passed, I want to show you where we did have some pretty chilly temperatures in the morning on Wednesday. So what you're looking at here is 7 a.m. temperatures on September 6th. And I've contoured this right at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So you can see that parts of Nebraska, getting way out here in western Nebraska, and parts of northern Minnesota are about the only two spots where we saw some near freezing or below freezing temperatures. Yeah, it wasn't to say it wasn't cool in parts of the Corn Belt, but that was our kind of first early season risk at potentially seeing a frost. And as we forecast for the last week or so, that frost threat was diminishing with time. Now we'll take a look at the temperature forecast in a few minutes, but I think we're going to be kind of in the clear for the worry of a frost for a while. All right. I got to transition now to the tropics because this is also going to control what's going on in Corn Belt weather here coming up. We right now have 3 hurricanes in the western Atlantic basin, and that of course includes the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. So let's start from west to east. This is Hurricane Katia. Interestingly enough, the name Katia joined the hurricane name list when we retired the name Katrina back in 2005. Katia is right now a Category 1 strength hurricane, and it is forecast to really impact Mexico and not the southeastern Texas coastline here. So that's very important to know. Moving to the east, this is Category 5 strength Irma. Irma is an exceptionally powerful hurricane with sustained winds of 185 miles an hour. Irma on early Wednesday morning, went over the northern islands here in the Lesser Antilles, and as of late Wednesday night, early Thursday morning, was moving just to the north of Puerto Rico on its way toward the Bahamas. We'll give you an update on Irma in a moment. Following Irma is Hurricane Jose, and Hurricane Jose is right now a Category 1 strength storm. Well, let's put our focus on Irma, as this will be the major kind of system that will impact the United States in the coming days. Now, a little bit of brief background on hurricanes. They need very, very warm sea surface temperatures. That's the skin temperature of the ocean water in order to survive. In fact, research has shown that we need to have at least 26 degrees Celsius. That's 81 degree Fahrenheit surface temperatures for hurricanes to form in the first place. And that's why when you look at a map like this, which is showing you temperatures in Celsius, we make this kind of hard color code distinction here, going over to these yellows at that breaking point. What that means is this entire area that I'm kind of coloring here has sea surface temperatures that are warm enough to support hurricanes. Now over here where we see these 30s, that represents sea surface temperatures that are in the upper 80s and some locations lower 90s. And hurricane strength is directly tied to sea surface temperatures, means Irma is going to be passing over some exceptionally warm waters, which will continue to fuel its Category 5 strength winds. So that's one thing that is, going to be very good for Irma in terms of it continuing to maintain its strength. Here's the other big factor. Hurricanes hate wind shear. Wind shear is a change in wind speed and direction with height. Hurricanes love to sit and spin in still environments around them. So what we like to look at are maps of wind shear, and that's what's color-coded here. The brighter the value, the higher the wind shear. Notice how Irma is moving through a region right in through here that over the next few days is not going to be seeing strong wind shear. Wind shear can break apart the hurricane. It can spread out its heating. It can disrupt the symmetry of the flow of the hurricane, thus weakening it. And basically what I'm telling you is sea surface temperatures are high, wind shear is low, and even the land that Hurricane Irma will interact with are these small islands. It's not like it's going to go over the spine of Cuba or Hispaniola, which would weaken it. It's going to stay to the north of that. So that means Hurricane Irma, which is right now Cat 5, should be and is expected to maintain its major hurricane strength in the coming days. Now, what's going to steer Irma? Well, that same big trough, by the time we get into Thursday, will be sitting here over the northeastern part of the United States and part of the Great Lakes. And because of the flow pattern of this trough being this far north, and this large subtropical ridge spinning here, which is spinning clockwise, Irma is going to continue to move toward the west-northwest, taking it over the Bahamas on Thursday into Friday and early Saturday morning. So that's an important feature to see. By the time we get into Saturday, look what happens. For the Corn Belt, this is a ridge building back into the flow. That means throughout the rest of this week in the Corn Belt, we're going to see rebounding temperatures back up into the 80s. Well, that ridge actually tends to break here, as you can see, pinching off this trough. And by the time we get into Saturday, that feature is very important for the eventual turn of Irma. You see, as it does this, as that trough turns like this, it's going to help steer Irma and pull it farther and farther to the north. In addition to that, there's a very weak trough feature here that's going to help push Irma to the east and to the north. And in a nutshell, that means Irma is going to interact with more than likely the east coast of Florida. And that's what we're currently seeing right now from the National Hurricane Center. As of very late in the night on Wednesday night, the latest update from the National Hurricane Center shows that Irma will maintain its major hurricane status, so stronger than Category 3, more than likely a Cat 4 or Cat 5, as it moves through the Bahamas, north of the island of Hispaniola, north of Cuba, and makes that hard turn going right here toward Miami. So Miami is smack dab in the middle of the cone of uncertainty in its path, and if Hurricane Irma goes just to the west of Miami, that puts the right-hand side of Hurricane Irma hitting Miami, and that is a bad situation because essentially the strongest part of any hurricane in the northern hemisphere is its right-hand side. So Irma then goes basically north to south across Florida, causing some major problems. Now, the latest runs from the GFS model show you the eventual path of Irma. And the GFS model is bringing the remnants of Irma here over into the eastern Corn Belt, which could provide some pretty heavy rains as we get past this weekend into early next week into this section. I'm not talking yet about major flooding over here, but we got to be watching that all weekend long to see where the remnants of Irma end up. You can see that maybe by the time we get out to day 6 and day 7 from today, we could be seeing quite a bit of precipitation here. But of course, Irma going across Florida is going to be producing a lot of precipitation. The good news is, unlike Harvey, Irma's not going to slow down. Irma's going to keep moving, which makes it it's going to be a flood threat, but it's also going to be a major wind and storm surge threat, which Harvey was not really a huge wind or storm surge threat. So Irma's on its way. It's taken off and going in this direction. Now take a look at this map, which is from the European model, showing the next 10 days of precipitation. In very much agreement with the GFS, most of the Corn Belt will be quite dry over the next 10 days. And there's a few big reasons for why that is, which I'm going to share with you next. But we're going to see a pretty dry pattern across the Corn Belt, unless you're in the eastern part of the Corn Belt, where Irma will interact with those states. So let's get into that. Here is the long-range outlook by the European model, taking a look from beginning of September through the beginning of October. This is precipitation anomalies, and we see that for the most of the whole of the Corn Belt, it's going to look pretty dry. Now, why is that? Well, as Irma basically goes spinning up the east coast, the Corn Belt's going to be in a regime where we're going to have some northerly wind flow. And what that means is with a large ridge aloft and then surface flow that for the first part of the month here is going to be from the north, we're not going to be drawing any moisture into this part of the country, hence the drier weather, the clearer skies. The bigger factor, though, is this. As we move into mid-September, we're going to actually see the pattern shift such that we see a broader ridge setting up across the central states. And that's going to allow our temperatures to rebound. So we're going to go back into kind of a little bit warmer pattern. And the other thing that it's going to do is this. Somewhere in the south central part of the United States, maybe toward the southeast, we're going to see some upper level subsidence. That's where the atmosphere is sinking. And as a consequence of that descending air, we're going to be building a pretty large high pressure center, probably sitting somewhere in this area that I've drawn it here. Well, what's the problem with that? You put a big blocking high in this position of the lower atmosphere, we're not able to transport Gulf moisture back up into the Corn Belt. And so that's why the European model is picking up on this overall drier pattern for the Corn Belt as we move through the month of September. So that's going to be very important as we watch the beans finish, especially those late planted beans. And it's also going to be important for corn as it finishes as well. So I just want to kind of give you the latest updates as we can see them here from the threat from Hurricane Irma and also what we expect Corn Belt precipitation and temperatures to do. So again, quick forecast, drier September for the Corn Belt, but also I don't expect to see the much below normal temperatures like we saw in August for the Corn Belt. So maybe a rebound back up toward some warmer temperatures. I'll also say this, in the near term, I don't see any threat for a frost coming up because of the shift in the overall flow pattern. So a lot of great stuff to kind of take a look at here. Hope this provides some great insights for you kind of on a macro scale. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. We at Agrible hope you look forward to our next forecast coming out early Monday morning. To get morning farm report for your operations, complete with a daily email that shows a snapshot of your field conditions, go to morningfarmreport.com. Sign up for a free account. Full grower accounts are free if you sign up for our Sustainable Yield program or for growers who work with ADM merchandisers. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to talking to you again after the weekend. Be safe if Hurricane Irma is coming toward you. Keep a close eye on the National Hurricane Center's website. That's nhc.noaa.gov. Thank you.